Hi, it's Meg. Welcome back to my channel. We're doing another week in my journal, so I'm following along this month with the Messy May prompts. And if you haven't seen last week's video or you don't know what all this is about, I'll leave all the information linked down below in case you want to join in or catch up, all that good stuff. So the prompts I'm working on this week, I've got a bit more of a realistic view for you because I've actually only included 4 prompts within this week's roundup of my journaling because that's all I got round to. I only got round to 4 out of the 7 prompts this week. That's not to say I won't do them, but that's just what happened this week. It's a realistic view of my journaling practice. So I will catch up with the other prompts, but the 4 that I have to show you today, they're rather chaotic. They're very much just trust me, stay with me on the process here, because that's what I was thinking to myself when I was doing some of these pages. But the one for backgrounds was a strong start. I actually really enjoyed doing this one. So the prompt involved like smooshing ink on plastic and sort of pressing it onto a page. And I really liked this effect. So I used a couple of distress oxides. I just sort of stamped them onto the plastic, added some water, and then just sort of went to town smooshing it around on the page. I didn't want to cover the entire background. I wanted to leave some white space, but I really enjoyed this combination. So I have Tattered Rose and Victorian Velvet, and they're actually the only 2 distress oxides that I own. They're in really pretty pink colours. I'd be interested to know what colours are your favourites of distress oxides, because I feel like I see them everywhere and I'm extremely late to the party. The party might not even be happening anymore by the time I get to it, but if I was to get some distress oxides, what colours do you think I should get? Let me know down below in the comments. But I really enjoyed the way this page turned out, and it's definitely something that I think I want to continue using in other spreads. I think when I got to the end of this page, I felt like I had a really nice balance of my collage and then also that painty effect. Like, it wasn't too much, I think, because the colours were muted and I was able to come in, as you'll see in a bit, with some white paint just to subdue it ever so slightly and kind of help it to blend in. And then I also, on the right hand side, just decided to cover the entire page with this book page. Now, I did put it in upside down, and that's because I find that when I do that, my eye isn't drawn immediately to reading whatever text is on the page. So that's why I prefer to glue things in upside down like this, so that I can focus on them more as just a decorative element on my page. And this page as well, I think, was really testing me for working on these A5 spreads, because I feel like I'm really out of practice with working on a larger scale and like having to remind myself that I need to use the larger collage elements. Like, I'm just so used to working small. You'll see when we get to the last prompt that I do in the video later on, I ended up just working on the flap of an envelope, and I felt like so much at home working on a tiny little space. So I was really trying to push myself here with working on the larger canvas that this spread gives me, and seeing how I can, add detail but still have interest. Like, I don't know, doing things that don't get lost on the page, and sort of making a bit of a bigger impact. It's really funny, after working in such small journals for so many years, coming back to a larger size has felt a bit like I've had to retrain myself almost, to be able to work on a different size. So here is that white paint that I mentioned. So you'll see I'm adding it in some of the areas that were already white, just to create a bit of a softer edge on some of the ink splotches, and to add a bit of texture. And then also on some of the pink as well, just to soften it and kind of just add a little bit more interest, I suppose. I carried it over into the pocket as well, and then also onto the book page here, just to try and get some cohesion going between the 2 pages, even though they've technically got 2 different backgrounds. As I'm realising as I'm watching this back whilst doing this voiceover, I've done basically 2 different backgrounds, haven't I, for this page? So it was really fun to experiment with these. And you'll see the pocket, I eventually end up gluing that down just because I wanted somewhere to have a focal point, and I was feeling like the pocket was getting in the way a little bit for me, but I didn't want to lose it completely. So I ended up gluing it down. So I've still got the choice of a pocket if I want to. And that's what I then used as my focal point. And it was still really interesting to do that because you have that translucency of the pocket. Like, you don't completely lose the fact that you can see bits of the book page peeking through. And I think as well it kind of helps to break up the huge book page that I've got, and sort of gives a bit of a break between that on the top and the bottom of the page. But then you still have all those colours showing through. Now you'll see here, look, I've defaulted to some small collage pieces, and I'm watching this and I'm like, Meg, why are you doing them so small? Like, the page is massive. So after a bit of thinking where I wanted to take the page next, I decided actually this botanical book that I have that has gorgeous illustrations that I always think, oh, they're too big to use on my smaller pages, would actually be perfect for this. So I decided to pick this one that had a lot of greenery, and then fussy cut it as always, because this is one of my favourite ways of adding my elements to my pages. I just find it so therapeutic to do. Okay, so welcome to the journey that is going to be the page for prompt 7, which was moments. Now, I didn't really resonate with the additional prompt that was given for this, about recording beautiful moments we witness in public spaces. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with that, so I went back to the theme of moments and I was just drawing a blank, which I think kind of can happen sometimes when you're just showing up every day for this daily challenge. However, what I did see was the artist who was hosting the prompt, Nicole Warrington. She did this beautiful page that had these like watercolor circles, really delicate and sort of organic shapes that had then writing on top of them. So I was looking at that and I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe that's something that I could try in my page. It's not something I would ever normally do on a page, so I thought let's just give it a go. So I decided to use the watercolor that I kind of already had mixed here, this like purplish color, and let's just say it was interesting. So I had fun doing this. One on the vellum page here didn't really work how I wanted it to. I think just the watercolor wasn't reacting in the way that I thought it would on the page. And then I think as well, the purple was just, it was a beautiful purple color, but it's bright for me, isn't it? Like, it's not a muted tone at all. So I'm thinking maybe I should have used a more like muted color for this, and maybe I would have felt a little bit differently as I was going through this page. But I could just feel as I was doing this that it really wasn't something that felt like me. And I was trying all sorts of different things to think, well, how can I sort of make it into something that might be? So I'm actually adding some coffee here to add a bit of a more muted and toned down effect, which kind of just ended up looking like mud, quite honestly. So I'm not really convinced that that was necessarily the best decision for this page. I think as well, I was wrestling with the fact that I had a lot of negative space going on, the white space, and I really wasn't sure what to do with it. You see there, I was just completely stumped. It took me ages. So I did end up having a look in my collage box because I thought, maybe I should cover this up. Maybe we should just start again. But I really did want to try and stick with this and see what I could do. And then I saw my PET tapes out of the corner of my eye, and I thought, oh, maybe we could do some like layering and try and make the three circles on the left hand side almost be their own little moments on the page and their own focal points. So what I ended up doing was I cut out sections of this PET tape, which I believe is by the designer Mr. Eggplants. I think I'll try and leave a link down below if I can remember where this was from. And it's kind of got like some leaves and some like little almost like faux paint splotches there with the white, and then also some handwriting and little bits of scribbles. And I thought, well, that's kind of the vibe that I've been going for a lot lately within the journal pages that I've been doing. So I decided to use those as layering elements and sort of focusing on the edge of each of the circles and seeing how I could get that to work into something that looked a bit more intentional, I think, and like I meant to do it. So I ended up working just on the three circles on the left hand side of the page, and then I was thinking, well, what am I supposed to do with the ones on the right? And I actually ended up just cutting the page out. I really couldn't think about what to do with the page, so I just thought, you know what, I'll just cut it out and cover it up, and we'll just move on and do something else there. But in the end, I actually really liked the way that these little circles came out. And it was definitely a lesson of persevering, I think, when it came to showing up for this page. So it's not something that I would normally create, I don't think. However, I do think I ended up sort of pulling it back into something that is a little bit more in my comfort zone, but also something different. And so I think that's another way that maybe I can start to use these watercolors in a way that kind of merges both the painty effect that they've got, and then also some collage by working around the edges. So I think this page is another win, because this is probably a technique that I might try. I mean, maybe it would work better for me if I had done this on a book page background or something that was a bit more aged and coffee dyed perhaps. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the page that I did for this next prompt is not one of my favorites. I was trying something a little bit different when it came to the prompt, and I'm not quite sure that it turned out the way that I wanted to or the way that I thought it might look in my head. But I did end up creating something of a weird, like, pocket tuck spot moment in this page. So the prompt was raise, and the longer prompt was explore balance through radiating lines. Now, the idea of the lines is something I've done in a couple of my previous journal pages. So I wanted to see how I could push that a little bit further. And I thought maybe I could create the rays with some collage by cutting them out of different patterns and having some clashing patterns, and then also using some white as accent for that. But then I was trying to cover the book page that I had done from the previous page. I really liked the colour of this envelope that I glued down, but then I never really did anything like with the envelope other than just having it be there as like a nice colour of the envelope. So the pocket is still on the page, and maybe I'll come back to it and add something onto the page as a little piece to tuck into the pocket. But it was really more working on this separate card here, like a large journal card. And when I was working on it, I thought that I would have it be like tucked into the pocket, but then for some reason I actually ended up like stapling it onto the bottom of the envelope so that it becomes almost a pocket, if you can imagine, and then this like tuck spot on top, which I guess is a cool like idea for a journaling element. It's not something that I had planned when I sat down to do this page, and I actually found myself getting a little bit frustrated that it wasn't going the way that I wanted it to. I think the page just was lacking like a central like focus or theme almost. Like the colors were sort of cohesive, but I think because I'd kind of pushed it with the different like collage idea that I had, it felt a little bit out of my comfort zone, which I think has just been a whole like theme with this week of journaling, is that I've tried to push myself out of my comfort zone. And of course, that's why it's called a comfort zone. It's not meant to feel comfortable when you're outside of it, trying new things. And I know I always encourage you guys to try and experiment with new things, but I'm just being real and honest with you here that I wasn't having a great time with this page and the trying of this new idea. So it's not something that I'm going to return to. So I guess in that sense, the thing that I've learned is just don't do this again. The pocket like tuck spot idea, I think, is something that maybe if I developed further could become something that I could use as a design element in other pages. I'm wondering actually if this would look cool with like a vellum element. Like, can you imagine the journal card that I've got there, if that had a window in it with some vellum maybe, and then like collage on the top, on the edge, and then having that on top of your envelope so that when you put something not in the envelope but in the like tuck spot on the top, you can see through. That could be a really cool idea to explore. So I don't know, maybe I'll have a play around with that idea and see what I can come up with. So I think in that way, the challenges are fun for seeing different ideas and things that you can come up with in your journals. I know I always advocate for these being like little reference books almost when I do challenges like this to create like a bank of these different ideas and techniques. So I definitely think that that's something that I might explore further. But when it comes to the clashing patterns here and the actual design of what I've done here, not so sure. I mean, maybe it's lacking a focal point, like it doesn't have like a area of interest that your eyes are drawn to. It's almost just like a little bit all over the place. I think so. Yeah, it's not one of my favorite pages, but I wanted to show you guys the process anyway. So the prompt for day 9 was open, and the fuller version was to create an interactive element that will open to add depth. So this is actually my favorite page of the ones that I'm showing you this week, and I went back to a trusty brown envelope here that I glued into this page. And what I did was I just worked on the flap here of the journal page. So I didn't do anything inside in terms of adding into the pocket, but I also concentrated my collage just onto this one element here. So I used the brown paper to work as like the negative space almost, and then I created a collage cluster here with lots of different papers. I have some tissue paper here, I've got some scrapbook paper with some like old-fashioned style writing on it, I've got some stickers, lots of different things. So I wanted to just create that like scrappy collage here, that then acted as that focal point, and the open part of the prompt was the fact that I was doing the journaling on like that part of the envelope that you open. So I think when it comes to working on future prompts, I might do something that goes inside of this envelope. But I also kind of just liked the fact that I was able to work on the envelope and working on it in a way that's a little bit less like standard or like typical. It's something a bit different, and I think I really enjoyed working in that way. And also, as I've been mentioning, working on a smaller scale for this and really focusing all of the elements in one place to create that lovely, detailed, textural look that I love in all of my journal pages. So as you'll see, even though I was working on a rather concentrated area of this page, I was still able to introduce quite a few different elements to this. And you'll see here I toyed with having something underneath the envelope, but I ended up deciding that it worked just fine on its own. But I did actually cut off a slither of this washi paper here because I wanted to use that colorway for adding some like washi strips to this page. So I just sort of tore them and used them in various places just to add some little details, little overlapping elements. They do blend into the page, they don't like pop out, and I think that's what I really enjoy about them, is that like aged look. And then I just use my stamp here along the edge of the envelope just for a little bit of definition. It's quite subtle, but it just adds a little something to the page. And then I finished it off with some stamping just for some extra detail work. But that is a week of journaling. As I said, I only did 4 of the prompts this week, but I will definitely be catching up with the ones that I haven't done. So I'll see you guys here next week for another week of journaling. As always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.